I just had therapy and I'm primed and ready for this podcast. Today we talk about Crocs. I mean, that is really good stuff. We hit on Eclipses and then we play a game called Deal or No Deal. And then I interview Lafangla Kiwatukaizi, trail name Lil Buddha, about his Pangea Traverse, getting attacked by bears, all the fun stuff. Lafanga was one of the first people that I met when through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail when I was 20 years old. All right, let's get into it. Thanks for joining us. Like, it's going to be a cold open for everything, but
Man, what an introduction.
I have been so impressed and thankful for all the 5-star reviews and the audience so far. We are just gaining a massive following. I think we'll start the cult probably within 6 months. So just hang on, stick with us. We are growing our numbers. Once we hit critical mass, we will be moving forward with the plan. So thank you. Once I hit that influencer status and get my influencer card, we're well on our way. So thank you, folks. I mean, every day I get up in the morning, I read my own book, I watch my own movie, eat my own meal, and do my own podcast. That is my morning routine. Take that, Andrew Huberman. I do not take cold plunges. All right, let's just get into everything. Ridiculousness, the TV show that just like makes fun of videos from the internet, just asked if they could use my video putting 3D printed balls on the back of my Crocs. That video has done better than all my other videos combined. It has like 26 million views. Really, really well done. It took me like 3 minutes to make and just blew up on the internet. The original sound, I think, got taken down from social media sites, so it doesn't even have sound, and people still watch that all the time. I don't know why. Maybe I should put it out. If you're looking for a Father's Day present, this is probably perfect for mowing the lawn. These nuts, I guess, attach right to the back of your Crocs, just like the ones that come on big diesel trucks. I think they get to drive off the lot with them with the trucks, but you have to buy these separately for Crocs. So that will be premiering on Ridiculousness. Like, two of my bigger things that had the most interest are when I ran a 5K in Crocs. Runner's World picked that up and did an article. I guess it was a slander piece, or I guess I shouldn't use the S word. It was a puff piece. The title is, "This athlete ran a 5K wearing Crocs, but here's why we don't recommend that." So they tell my story, some things that not really part of the story. The real part of the story comes up down here, where the first podiatrist, Anna Weber, doctor of podiatric medicine. I don't know what podiatric, I didn't even know that was a word. Okay, but she says there's a difference between cushy and cushion. It's a common misconception that something cushy would be good for your feet, but what most of us really need is something with more stability. When you're wearing Crocs, you're really not getting the support or stability features that you do with a running shoe. So that's the first person who says they wouldn't run in Crocs. And the second one, yep, they did interview 2 doctors to say that what I did was stupid. Dr. Courtney Conley, a chiropractic physician specializing in foot and gait mechanics at Gait Happens in Golden, Colorado, acknowledges Crocs have a wide toe box, but points out that plenty of running shoes offer the same benefit. For a 5K, this is what she says. For a 5K, one might be able to get away with this, but for the majority of distance runners, having the appropriate shoe can be the icing on the cake for performance. Running shoes that allow this same forefoot splay are, she lists a couple different brands. These give the benefits of a wide toe box, but with more structure to accommodate different terrains and allow for longer distance running. Well, guess what, guys? Something big just happened. A man broke the world record for a marathon in Crocs. He ran a 2:58:24, 2 hours, 58 seconds, 24 minutes. Chris Howitt filmed the entire thing, videoed it, completely perfect, flawless execution. That's a Boston qualifying time, sub 3 hours. Take that, submitted it to the Guinness Book of World Records. Incredible video. And I think it just proves that Crocs are the premier footwear. It was his first marathon and he pulled out a sub 3. So take that, everyone who's been hating on Crocs. And also, I always get the last laugh because the title photo of the Crocs accomplishment that I did when Runner's World wrote that up is me standing in one of those shirts that looks like you have a really big hairy belly. So that's definitely a win. All right, moving on from Croc Talk. Now that we've covered every distance from 5K to marathon, we're trying to get those middle distance runners in here. And I think this will trick the algorithm into really getting them to jump on board. Also, check out Chris Howitt's video. Actually, I'll just drop like a good clip in here and a link to his video in the show notes. Wow, I sound like a real podcaster. All right, here's the clip.
I'm about to attempt to break the record for the world's fastest marathon in Crocs in what is my first ever marathon.
All right, and now in other news, I have been recently given 15 extra hours per week. It's pretty strange because for the training for Cocodona, everything like that, I was training, I guess, 15 up to 20 hours a week for that. And now I'm finally not running. I'm hurt. I'm injured. I'm like my first injury of my life here. I haven't run in almost 4 weeks now. I'm going a little crazy, which is why I have this podcast and I'm doing this special episode here in my house that's kind of dark. It's sunny outside, but I'm going to go on a walk after this because I'm a big walk guy, big walk energy. But another thing I am, big eclipse guy. I simply love eclipses. This year I decided I was going to the eclipse. Well, not even this year. Last year, I decided I was going to the eclipse this year. Started making plans in October. I'm telling you, big eclipse energy. I went in 2017 and it is wild. It's crazy. The sun just disappears in the middle of the day. You see the shadow come at you. Everything goes dark. You got to be in 100% totality. I always say, give me totality or give me death. Heard it here first. That's my quote. I should put that on a t-shirt. I did make eclipse merch. It's on my website. Not even joking. That is not a joke, but the merch is kind of jokes. You'll have to check it out. freeoutside.com/store. That's a plug for me. Anyways, so this eclipse, 2017 was good and just new. Had to travel. Looked at flights. They were pretty expensive, but found one to Nashville. So we went out there, rented a car. It was a very expensive trip. You're getting like 5 minutes of totality. So our price per minute of totality, it was not a bargain. Flew out there, rented a truck. It was a pretty sick truck, actually. I think it was a Toyota Tacoma. Drove to Southern Illinois, so drove 2 hours, camped out, and sat in a big old field and just watched the sun disappear. The birds go quiet. It gets eerie, silent, gets dusk. The temperature plummets, and then you see the moon slowly go in front of the sun, and then it's gone. It's dark. It's like nighttime. This would have been crazy if you were living in the Middle Ages, which luckily we are not. But it disappears, and it's like the coolest 5 minutes you'll ever experience. I mean, it's worth the price of admission, and the price of admission for us was a lot. So I've been trying to find out when the next eclipse is, and I went on this website that talks about eclipses, and I realized I don't really know anything about astrology or astronomy, whichever one does stars. But I do know my horoscope. I'm a Scorpio, obviously. And then, so they list all these different ones, and there's like lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. But they say partial, total. I don't know the difference in them. There's like annular eclipses. Anyways, that's how I've been spending my free time. Not going great, but I'm doing my PT every day. This is a reminder. If you're supposed to do your PT, keep this podcast playing in the background and get that done. So we've done eclipses, we've done Crocs, we've pretty much done everything. Now let's just move into our game of the day, because who doesn't love games? I'm like a 5-year-old dressed in a 33-year-old body. That's weird. Okay, the game of today, it's called Deal or No Deal. Let's do it. In this game, what we do is I read through a recent contract I received that I did not take, and you simply, at the end, decide deal or no deal. Number 1, the brand will provide the opportunity to shape the future of a brand you love, sneak peek at new releases, opportunity for your story to be celebrated and shared on their social media to help build your personal brand. Well, that's nice. Connection to a broader community of dedicated athletes. 10, count them, 10. Free shoes per year. 5, 50% off coupons. Ooh. a 10% community code to share with your followers. Sick. Access to branded gear and apparel exclusive to their team. Ooh, that's pretty sick. Okay, to get all of that, remember it's deal or no deal. This is what the athlete would provide. Highlight the brand regularly on social media, minimum 1 per week. Demonstrate support for this brand by not using competitors. Practice ethical and upstanding social media etiquette. Always. Wear this brand's apparel when training and racing. A long paragraph, just breezing through it. Help elevate this brand's presence by regularly documenting your journey and highlighting them on posts regularly. Promote new launches and marketing. Post product reviews and relevant discussion. Make your social media public. Actively participate in forums and online discussions when the brand arises. Wow, that's an interesting one. Generate unique and meaningful branded content. Fill out surveys detailing the experience you've had with their products. Provide regular constructive feedback. Now that's a fun one. All right, that's it. Deal or no deal. Only got a couple seconds. Yeah, I usually don't take branded things if there's not money involved, and that's where I stand. So the product trades, I think, can maybe be worth it when you're getting into it, but it is at cost for them. And I think the value is what brands and people put into it. And since this is really my niche, my brand, my job, I think you just have to draw the line at some monetary compensation. That can be in different forms, such as race reimbursement, travel, stuff like that. Lots of different things in the athlete world, and should probably get more into sponsorship in general. But rule of thumb for me and anyone who wants to make a true side hustle or a career in the outdoor space, or probably any athletic space, is you have to start attaching money to your relationships eventually. I mean, you can get in at some point, that's really good in building, but eventually you have to have that discussion and that understanding that where you're getting to involves money, because that's what it takes these days. All right, that was today's edition of Deal or No Deal. Now let's get into the interview with the man who's hiked 50,000 miles and he's not even 50 years old yet. We got some good bear stories, and he's one of the first people I met on the Pacific Crest Trail 14 years ago. Here is Lofangla Lil Buddha Kiwatukaisi. I think I nailed that. Have you had any grizzly encounters in all your miles up to this point?
Oh, yeah, many. I've been charged by mother grizzly bears. I've gotten in between two bears that were fighting that completely ignored me, like on the Great Divide Trail up in Canada. Yeah, and generally, like, bears don't really, I'm not scared of them. I obviously respect them and give them their space and, all that. And polar bears are completely different, right? I mean, there's no bear hang unless you're going to hang, somehow put yourself up in a tree. I mean, you are kind of,
Yeah.
you can sometimes often be what the bear wants, right? I've had plenty of bear experiences.
I want to hear, I mean, we both been charged, so old news. I want to hear about this bear fighting story when you're walking through.
Oh man. So this was on the Great Divide Trail. Oh gosh, I mix up all my dates, but I think it was 2017 or 18 when I did the Great Divide Trail up in Canada, Canadian Rockies. And it was just before Banff, but I was pretty high up and coming in and out of the tree line because the trail kind of routes up there. And all of a sudden I hear this, like, the trees are just being pushed over, and I look up and it literally looks like when Godzilla in the movie was like moving all the trees and stuff. And this huge grizzly bear just comes tearing down the mountain right towards me. And, and I grabbed my pepper spray, and they have bear bangers up there. They're like little firecrackers you can shoot off. They aren't legal here in the States, but they have them up in Canada. I didn't even have a chance to pull those out to shoot. I was just yelling, "Hey, bear!" and, making sure he saw me. And he comes running by me, maybe not even 8 feet, and crosses the trail and just runs by and looks at me as it's running. And I'm like, holy cow. My heart was like thumping. And, I
Yeah.
was terrified. And not even 5 seconds after that, another bear, a bigger bear. And the first one was already big, but this one was huge. He had all this silver on him. I think as they get older and more dominant, they just become silver. And he was chasing like the smaller bear. And I'll tell you what, it is probably one of the most horrifying sounds I've ever heard of when the big bear caught the little bear. They were like, it was like a grizzly war, and they were like just like fighting, and I could hear them like down the mountain. I'm telling you, Legend, I've never been so scared, to be so close in between two bears. I hiked, I was out of there like, really quick. And that night, I probably hung my bear food bag, half a mile from my campsite. And I slept maybe 2 hours. I was terrified.
Yeah.
But
Were
that's
you
the bear wars.
were you like triggered too? Like I remember after I got charged, I was like, I don't know, it was like on drugs or something, like talking to myself, like scurrying along. I was a different person. It was crazy.
I think it's like I mean, for me, what I always kind of like talk myself down,
Mhm.
after an incident like that. And it can be a bear, it can be like a dog on the Florida Trail or Alabama Roadwalk on the ECT. I mean, anytime you have an interaction with an animal that could easily take you out, you kind of have to like get your bearings, but you have to like just talk yourself off of not quitting, but like, I mean, on the GVT, I was in the middle of nowhere. There's nowhere to, there's no
Mhm.
exit. But like, you have to just like rationally think, okay, animals are pretty predictable.
Yeah.
They don't generally want anything to do with us. They want us to stay away from them. So the charge, they're fighting over territory. I'm just like another spectator on the landscape. They don't want anything to do with me. And rationally, you're telling yourself that when your adrenaline's going, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, you are more alert. You are more like every little noise in the forest. You resort back to kind of, I think, our ancestors. There's a reason why like a rattlesnake, that spit and rattle, we all
Yeah.
have the same reaction. It's all primordial, right? It's all of that. So yeah, there's all that.
Yeah, even my first night on the PCT 2011 when we met. So
Uh-huh.
this a few weeks, probably 2 or 3 weeks before we met, my first night on the trail, I couldn't quite make it to the lake. And so I set up on the ridge, and every little sound I thought was like a bear or something, even though there's no bears down there. So even like the birds introduce that primordial feeling of just dread or something.
Oh, it's kind of like even when you go, like the first time you sleep in the desert. I don't know how it was, our cowboy
Mhm.
camp in the desert. I don't know how it was for you, but I
Well,
was like,
you saw me. You stepped over me. That's how we met.
this is very true. That is true. But like, I was any kind of like anything that brushed up against me, I thought was a scorpion or a rattlesnake. You know,
Yep.
like when you're cowboy camping for the first time in the desert, everything. So yeah, good
Yeah, and
times.
the Joshua trees look like aliens, and like you have that one uncle who's like, make sure to empty out your shoes or else a scorpion might crawl in. So you're just scared of everything. Yeah, good times. But I think that's the allure of through hiking is you do slowly reconnect and recalibrate your mind into what's actually fear inducing and what's not. Like after getting charged, I came upon a hunter's camp and talked to the mules that they had, not knowing that they were like 20 feet away watching this disheveled guy talking to their mules about getting attacked by a grizzly.
So you were charged by
A
a
mama
grizzly.
bear. Yeah,
Oh
mama
yeah,
grizzly. Yeah.
yeah.
But you're right. They're mean territorial, but they're just trying to get you to get out of there and protect their young. So next time I'll just stand still and not even worry, fight that bear off
Sure.
myself.
Yeah.
So I want to get into your hitchhiking, or maybe your first through hike, the John Muir Trail, and how you got out
Oh,
there.
oh
So
yeah.
were you in New York at the time?
No, I was still
Oh,
I was
this is
still in,
college.
yeah, this is college. I was 19. And it was the very first through hike I'd ever hiked, but I was a camp counselor at a camp in Colorado called Chile, Colorado camps. And like the season had ended, and I still had, I think, about 4 weeks until fall semester at KU, University of Kansas. And so I was like, well, I've got 4 weeks. I might as well do something. Do I want to stay in Colorado, or hey, maybe I'll hitchhike out to California and do some hiking? I read about the John Muir Trail in Ray Jardine's book, How to Hike the
Mhm.
PCT, the guide that he put out a few years before that. And so I kind of knew about it already. And I was like, well, I'm pretty in great shape actually from doing all this backpacking at the summer camp. And, it's about 190 miles at the time. I think I could probably hike that. So
Mhm.
I was like, I didn't have a ride, and I figured I'd been hitchhiking all around Rocky Mountain National Park and might as well just try it. And I got 3 solid hitches out to Yosemite Valley, showed up with like my JanSport backpack that I've been using. That was, I used as a school bag, but then also as a backpacking bag.
Perfect.
But it was not a backpacking bag, but you can imagine how it looked like. And I can't remember, but Ray must have written how to resupply. But in my mind, when I was 19, as a very poor college student, I just thought I was going to carry all my food for that 200 miles. And so I had like cereal and, like, I'm not kidding, maybe 40 packs of ramen, like just stuffed into my bag. And then on top of that, I had, stuff hanging from my bag. My tent, I think, was up on, or my tarp was up on top.
Mhm.
I just had stuff hanging, like every person that starts this through hiking. I mean, we all start heavy, right?
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so like that was when I was 19, and I just kind of got hooked. I met a couple of hikers that year that really started helping me and show me, the ins and out of backpacking and living out of a bag. And so that was really helpful. But I had no experience. I mean, the only experience I really had was just like backpacking and camping with my family as a
Mhm.
kid. But I had no idea what long distance hiking was. And just really just kind of like, I think I remember reading Ray in the book. Ray made a comment that like tennis shoes or running shoes were the best. And I grew up playing tennis.
Mhm.
And so I was like, oh, I have a pair of tennis shoes. I'll just use those. Those lasted like 100 miles. Tennis shoes are not running shoes. They're built
No.
for lateral movement. You know what I mean? And so I had to get rid of those, and I ended up, I don't even remember where I was. It must have been Mammoth is where I picked up some new shoes. And I think it was probably at like a thrift store or something like that. Hey, if there's banging, they're replacing the balcony out here. So
Yeah, he
that's what
lives in a mansion. Yep.
happened. Yeah. So yeah, that was the John Muir Trail, and
So yeah, so when you know you're gonna hitchhike out and through hike the John Muir Trail, do you just like walk to the end of the driveway and stick your thumb up, or how do you know where to even start?
so Chile is up in Estes Park, which is really close to Rocky Mountain National Park up in
Mhm.
Colorado.
Yeah.
And I had been hitchhiking all over the park because you hitchhike and you hike back down to camp or to your car or whatever. And I was like, well, I think I could probably get a hitch at least through Rocky Mountain National Park and then down into like where Breckenridge, that road that goes
Mhm.
down. Then it would be I-70. It would be a straight shoot, right?
Yep.
And so that's kind of what I was thinking. And I just got really lucky. The first people I went down there, I was probably standing out there for maybe 30 minutes. And the first people that pulled over was a family from Nevada that was out exploring Rocky Mountain National Park. And so kind of when I told them where I was headed, they were like, well, we can get you as close as, to Nevada, and then you'll have to, figure it out the rest. So I got really lucky with that first hitch. The other two
Yeah.
hitches were took a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when they stop to sleep at night, where do you sleep? Right in the bed next to them?
Yeah. They camped one night on the way back, and we just like camped out like in Western Colorado. So in my own tarp at the time.
That's the ideal situation.
It was really cool, and they were so cool. They were a young family. Their son he wasn't much younger than me. I think he was like 15. At the time I was 19. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of cool. I wish I still had their information. I might have it in my, God, I'm going to date myself, my AOL account. But I don't even know if I still have an AOL account, to be honest with you. But I think that's how I had their email. I have their email somewhere. I'll have to look them up.
So you finished the John Muir Trail. You're hooked on Thru-hiking. Now what? How do you make it a part of your life, or do you put it aside for a while? What do you do from there?
Yeah, so I definitely I knew I was going to hike more, but I just didn't know how, right? And and I hitchhiked also back to Kansas, from California, which was one of the hitches in Las Vegas. That was not good. I remember I got in the car and I got out probably about 3 miles later. The guy was just really inebriated, and so he let me out. But I knew I was always going to hike again, but I also knew that I was going to go to college. Education is just kind of a thing that my family has always kind of put forth. And so, I was like, okay, I'll go to college and probably get a job and stuff and maybe work a few years, and then maybe I'll start hiking again. And so, I went back, went to school, finished school, and then moved to New York and got a job, and and had that kind of traditional, I guess, New York lifestyle for a few years. And when I was tired of that and just tired of the big city, and I always knew that the trail was there, and so eventually I found myself back. But I always knew I would hike a trail again. I just didn't know when it would be, and also another long trail. And so right after the JMT, I mean, the PCT was the first long hike technically long hike I did. And that was in 1998. And so that was a few years after I had done the JMT.
Yeah. So how many miles have you hiked to date? Yes.
I guess
I'd like an exact number. No.
You want an exact number? No. So I this year I did break 50,000. So that's kind of been an achievement, and I wanted to do that before age 50, and I'm 47 now. And so with the ECT, it took me over 50,000. I'm sitting right at about 52 right now.
Wow, that is insane.
I guess, you know how it is. You walk, it just adds up.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm batting my age too. I got 35,000 and 30. I'll be 33 in a week. So here we go.
So
we've overcome our age.
When I was your age, I did not have that. So you're gonna like triple me probably.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, you get out you're doing a 16,000 mile adventure.
Well, yeah. I guess, and and once. So let me think. So that's, I'll get over 60,000 miles in 3 years then. In 2 years now. Yeah.
Wow, you will be geriatric by that point. So I want to kind of, last topic is so you did the Continental Divide Trail. It was 2021, right?
Sure, that sounds right.
Okay. And like a big part of that was it's right after and during the pandemic and raising awareness and money and stuff. So first though, I want to get into like your identity as being Hmong and kind of even your parents' values in getting to America and that type of thing, and why that's so important too. And I think it's the first time I've seen you rally and jump into a cause and make a difference, because we've just been so happy-go-lucky, but you have it in you to make a change too.
Yeah. So, and it was 2021. I was doing a southbound of the CDT, and this was kind of right around when all of the COVID stuff was happening and all that fear mongering was going
Hmm.
on. And you know, there was kind of a lot of just anti-Asian sentiment. And I thought I knew I was going to be in a situation on the CDT that I was going to be in pretty remote areas of the country, and that might give opportunity to have some discussion, right?
Hmm.
Because people might be scared of me. I mean, that might,
Yeah.
I mean, they're for whatever reasons, there might be fears of a person that looks like me coming into their community. And I thought that would be a good opportunity to have like a discussion and kind of really understand how they felt, like try to see their perspective, right?
Hmm.
Because that's all we can ever really do is just meet people where they are. And so I thought I would be in a pretty unique position to have those kind of conversations. And so there was a campaign called the Stop AAPI Hate Campaign that
Hmm.
was started by the CCASF. It's the Chinese for Affirmative Action. They're the longest running AAPI organization in the United States that aggregates all of the hate crimes and, you know, tracks everything that happens to the AAPI community. And
Hmm.
so they're the ones that started the whole hashtag and the whole campaign. And I just reached out to them and kind of explained what I was. They had no idea what a through hiker was and what we did, but they were really interested in kind of like me being literally just putting myself out in these situations where I potentially could have great conversations or maybe even being harmed, right? You don't want to ever set yourself to be harmed, but just
Yeah.
by my, the current state of what was going on. And so, we had kind of like this plan about like, they gave me like a script and, did all that stuff and like did a little bit of training with me. But really, my main goal was just to bring awareness to the issue and also to fundraise. And so,
Hmm.
together, I was able to raise, oh gosh, I don't even remember now. It's like 6,000 plus or $6,000 that went directly to their campaign. And, and I had two goals. I wanted to be in the community and be visible, right? As a person of color, as an Asian American living in the United States that was participating in something that, for the most part, most BIPOC people are underrepresented in. And
Hmm.
that's, being outdoors through hiking, right?
Yeah.
And I also wanted to have a conversation with through hikers because, I think it's through hikers in the communities that we walk through. Um, I think when we're presented with issues like this, social issues that seem bigger than what we get lost in like, well, what can we do, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm just one person. What is it that I can do to affect change, right?
Hmm.
And for me, what I have always found to be most useful and most impactful are the conversations I have individually with people I know and then also people I meet. You know, I am not a celebrity. I'm
Well,
just a
you're
single.
you're an outsider of the year.
Oh, okay.
You're an
So
outside
I'm
magazine celebrity.
fair. But like it's these small interactions where I feel like, if I can leave the situation better and
Hmm.
leave them with a perspective that might be different than what they thought of a person that looks like me or people that look like me that they never interacted with, well, maybe they might have a different perspective, and that perspective might be shared with some of their friends that have never interacted with people like me. And so I think there's like that cascading effect, right? And I know that that's true because I've actually experienced that on other trails. In 2010, when I first hiked the ECT, I was in southern Alabama and on the Pinhoti Trail. And this was at a time when people weren't A, hiking the Pinhoti Trail,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
B, the ECT, no one knew what that was. But these people I met were pretty, yeah, I mean, they were just, they'd never met anyone like me. So they had some pretty, racist like beliefs, but we somehow became, friends. And, I spoke to them and I stayed with them for a couple of nights. And I know that that has changed the way they think because, I'm friends with them today. And,
Yeah.
and I see how they've evolved, 13 years later. And so I think if we just, again, if we meet our fellow man where they're able to meet and be okay with that, and be okay with like stumbling around like language and words, I think it's a better way to to be.
Yeah. Okay, I got two more questions.
Okay.
The first one, I in kind of a world that is pretty crazy and lots of turmoil all over. If you're comfortable, I'd love if you could share the story of your family getting to Kansas or
Oh, sure.
coming. I mean, I was born in the US. I don't know the hardship and how hard it is for people to get here. So I'd love that story.
Yeah, so I'm Hmong, and if you're not familiar with the Hmong, we are a Southeast indigenous people, originally from China, who were kicked out by the Chinese, and we dispersed into Southeast Asia, so Laos, Thailand, Vietnam. And in the 1960s and 70s, the CIA, the United States, essentially recruited a lot of the Hmong to fight against the spread of communism. And so my family was pretty involved in that. My grandfather was very, very involved. And so, and I have a really unique last name that's even unique within Hmong tribes. And so all Kittikaises were all related around the world. I mean, we all come from one great, great, great grandfather. And so we're easily distinguished is what I'm trying to say. And so when the United States pulled out of Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, our family became refugees, but then we also became political refugees. And so that kind of moved us up in the exit, right?
Yeah.
The United States wanted to take their allies and the people that were working with them because we were being persecuted, right? So my family, my mom, she had to escape. So my father and mother were separated during this. My father was out fighting. My mom was still in the village with my brothers and sisters and me unborn. She had to cross the jungles of Laos and then get across the Mekong River all by herself with my 5 older brothers and sisters, and again, me unborn. And then I was born in a refugee camp in Naphong, Thailand. And so then at one point, many months later, my parents came back together and they were basically sponsored by the United Methodist Church in Kansas. And we were basically brought over as sponsees, right? And moved to Hutchinson, Kansas, and the community kind of like supported our whole family and gave my parents education and training, work training and all that stuff. And so that's kind of how we got here, and that's kind of the story of all the Hmong that are here now in America. And I think kind of with being a refugee and a political refugee and a migrant into this country, it kind of goes back into this whole identity thing. So I'm a mix of American and also kind of just like crossroads of Southeast Asian and all this stuff that, I have different like, I guess, cultural pressures as opposed to just like people that like grew up here in America or were born here. And so like when we were talking earlier, education, I knew I was always going to go to school because Southeast Asians are, education is very important. And I had a lot of pressure to become a doctor or a lawyer or like a businessman. So this, I think my family has, it's been challenging for them to see kind of me get into the corporate world in New York and then kind of just let that all go and become this like long distance wanderer. I think they've had to do a couple of mental like gymnastics to become okay with who I am today.
Yeah, but it must be sort of nice. It seems like when you're not on this big adventure, you value and put a lot of family time with your nieces and nephews too, it seems like.
Yeah, I try. I try to be a good uncle. I don't know how successful I am all the time. I mean, you know me. I like to be alone. So
Yeah, alone but goofy as well, so that works well. All right, my
yeah.
last question. I want
Okay.
you to give your best attempt at naming all the trails you've through hiked.
Oh my God. I have. I mean, like I've done all the alphabets. How about that? Yeah. So I've done obviously the big three, couple times, multiple times. Like a Watchshot Trail, Pinhoti Trail, um, Great Divide Trail, Arizona Trail. Did that before it was even a national scenic trail.
Yep.
That was kind of interesting. Um, yeah, so I mean I think I have hiked most trails except the Pacific Northwest Trail. I haven't done that. I haven't done
I
that
got
one trail that you did as part of your Great Western Loop, the southern section. I never
the
remember the
Grand
name.
Grand Enchantment Trail.
Haven't done the Grand Enchantment Trail. Um, I haven't done the Nachis Trail. What else?
How about the
Uh,
Sheltowee? Have you done that?
I
Sheltowee
haven't done
Trace?
the Shotoe Trail.
Man, you have left major gaps in your resume here.
Huge gaps. Yeah, and legend. I don't know. I don't know if I'll. I definitely want to do the Pacific Northwest Trail.
Mhm.
I'm gonna see how the Pangea Traverse, how that all kind of happens in the next few years, and then, one decision I've made is I will not hike anything over 1,000 miles after I'm done hiking the Pangea Traverse. I just think I'm getting too old, and the commitment to be gone for 6 months up to a year. It's just
Mhm.
getting harder as I get older, because I do have other responsibilities that I have to take care of.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, the Pacific Northwest Trail, it's like 1,200 miles, so we got to stretch that a
Oh,
little bit. You can bring me out of retirement.
I guess I can't hike that. No, it's 1,000 or lower. Short
Well,
walks
we
only.
can section hike it. We'll do half and half.
I might have to do that. Yeah.
It might be best because you could just pick the perfect window each time.
Oh, okay. Because what you're racing, you're going west east, and so you're racing. What are you racing?
Well,
Fall?
yeah, fall, or you're gonna have late snow in Glacier,
Mm,
but it's not that big a deal. We could definitely squeeze it into a month and a half or something. But
yeah.
for your sake, since you don't hike in the rain, we're gonna have to play that rainforest section by ear.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. That'll be tough.
Yeah,
Yeah, it rains a
yeah.
lot up there.
Are you gonna change that rule as you get into Greenland,
Dude,
Iceland?
this year was wild. I don't know if you were following what was
Mhm.
happening out in the East Coast, but it was torrential.
Yeah.
On the AT, we basically it started raining in like Massachusetts and never stopped until I got up to Canada, and then even up there it was still raining. I mean, fortunately, I mean, I think there were even a couple of hikers that passed away on the AT this year in the floods, right?
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like serious. I remember being on the AT this summer and telling all these hikers, these rivers are like what you see out west. You know,
Yeah.
it was wild. I've never seen any of those rivers like that. And so thankfully they're a lot. They aren't as wide as the rivers out in the Sierra or the Rockies, but like they were pretty high rapids. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, a hurricane hit the PCT this year. Like, what's happening to these
What?
trails? Yeah, remember that hurricane that came through California?
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it happened, I don't know, I want to say late August maybe or
Oh
early
wow.
August. Yeah, something crazy. So trails are a little different than, decade ago when I first started and a lot more decades when you first started.
It's good that you hiked the PCT when you did. I mean, I think it was still uh, there were still quite a bit of fires. I think even in 2011,
I didn't
but
have any issues, but people behind me did, I heard.
yeah, just to see that progression of how the landscape has been scarred by fires and climate change or whatever. It's pretty drastic. We're hiking in different times.
Even then though, we didn't like the permit was just a formality.
Oh right, right.
Yeah, I mean, just hand them out if you put your name on there and they don't care. The good old
Yeah.
days. But yeah, how long is the Pangea Traverse, by the way? And what is
So
it?
it's yeah, depending on the route, it's about 18,000 miles. A year ago, I was kind of just trying to figure out the route, and I mean, and the Pangea Traverse, it's really based off of. I'm using like the International Appalachian Trail, like um, I guess they're co-branded trails overseas as an outline. And I'm building off of that. I'm basically going to connect all of their trails, and so it adds on like I think 2 or 3 thousand more miles. No, it's not even that. It adds on like almost 6,000 more miles to what they're doing. And so there's going to be quite a bit of road walking, a lot of just route finding, and up in like Iceland and stuff. I'm going to have to get a pack raft also. Uh, it's either that or I'm going to have to walk like 400 miles around some of these inlets. So that will all be very interesting and very new to me.
Yeah, so this year was sort of the North American continent portion of the endeavor, and what is next year going to be?
So next year, I'll start off at the Strait of Gibraltar, right at the Morocco and southern Spain, and I'll start heading north. And
Okay.
so the climate there it's very similar to the mid-Atlantic. So I could probably start hiking there like in February or March. I've got a lot of friends over in Spain and Portugal, and so they're obviously wanting me to come over now to start hiking, but my
Yep.
body needs a little bit of a rest. I'm not getting any younger, and this ECT was pretty. It's interesting because out of the other two that I've hiked, I didn't hike with any pain, and I
Okay.
think it's because I had to take 2 extended breaks, which were really really helpful. They were for work. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, and I could probably go right into continuing the hike, but I've got a couple of commitments over the winter that I have to take care of, family stuff, work stuff. I am working all the time, so it is what it
Yeah.
is.
So is this was your third time doing the ECT? Is that
This is my third time. So 2010 was the first time I hiked the ECT. And then in 2019 and 2020, I did a southbound, my always autumn ECT. And then this year I went northbound again. So the ECT was always the goal. And the idea of like the Pangea Traverse, I mean, I knew about it. I knew about what the IAT was trying to do. They were trying to essentially connect all of these different routes and trails across the spine of what are now the Appalachians, right? So the
yeah.
Central Pangea Mountains are the mountains that were part of the supercontinent Pangea. And so all of those mountains are basically like the same if you go down far enough in the bedrock. The Appalachians, the Caledonia Mountains in like Greenland and Western Europe, and the Anti-Atlas Mountains in Morocco. Those are all the same mountains. Those all constituted the Pangea Mountains many, many, many eons ago. And so I was familiar with their concept. I don't think anyone has gone out to try to hike like all those trails yet in a continuous route. And, very similar to like when I did all my hiking out west first before I came east. I originally was just going to hike the Appalachian Trail in 2010. And then I was like, oh, I could probably do the Pinhoti Trail and Bent McKay Trail as well. And then, I stumbled across Nimblewell Nomads
Yep.
ECT, and that's how that all kind of came to be. So very similar, the Pangea traverses that. The goal this year was always to hike the ECT for a third time. And I was like, well, I might as well just go. If I'm going to do this, I might as well just do the whole thing. I mean, I've got the time, and I'm still young enough to be able to hike, I think. And so, why not? Why not? I've got 3 years that I could put all into hiking.
So it'll take 3 years to complete the 16,000 miles.
Yeah, so so the ECT is anywhere between like 5,700 miles to 6,000 miles, depending on your route in the southern part, and then also up in the northern part. If you go all the way up to Newfoundland, for example. And so each year it's interesting. It breaks out to be about 5 to 6,000 miles. So I'm breaking it out to 3 segments: North America, and then North Europe. So that includes the British Isles, Greenland, Iceland, and then the mainland of Europe, all the way from Norway down to Morocco. Well, Morocco's essentially Africa, but it's part
Mhm.
of that little segment. And my plan is to knock it off in the most logical way. And so you can't really hike like Greenland and Iceland, in early spring. You kind of want to wait for everything to, the weather to be a little bit more temperate. So there's a little bit of scheduling around that. So I thought, and I want to say Morocco for the very end. And so I think starting at the Strait of Gibraltar and heading northbound up, through Spain, Portugal, and then
Mhm.
up eventually up to Norway makes the most sense. And then probably the year after, so that's 2024. 2025 would be doing the British Isles, Greenland, and Iceland, and then going back to Morocco. So
Wow.
yeah, that's going to be a little bit of logistics and putting it all together.
Yeah. So what are the termini of this trail? So you have one at the tip of Florida and the other is somewhere in Europe?
No, it's actually Africa. So for
Okay.
me, yeah, it's the Anti-Atlas Mountains of Morocco. They're the tallest mountains in northern Africa. And the tallest mountain there that's non-technical to climb is Mount Toubkal. And I believe it's either the second or third tallest Appalachian mountain in the world. I think there's a couple of Appalachian mountains or Caledonia mountains up in Greenland that are taller, but I think it's like 13,700 feet. So I figure, I'm starting off at Key West, which is
Mhm.
essentially the lowest part of the Pangean Mountains, and finishing up at the top.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So how much planning went into this thing? I know
Oh,
you,
like a couple hours.
yeah, right. Well, at least you know the ECT portion, and then when it turns over and becomes this overseas endeavor, does that involve a lot more planning, or are there
Oh
more
yeah.
amenities as well?
Oh, it's going to be a lot more planning, and also a lot of it depends on the funding that I'm able to secure. On all my hikes, I always generally fund my own hikes.
Mhm.
This year, I got to work with a couple of companies, which was really helpful, and I'll look to hopefully do that with other companies as well. Um, shameless plug,
Yeah,
but got to put myself out there, right? Um,
absolutely.
yeah, so like in Greenland, there are obvious obstacles. Um, uh, First of all, the terrain is unlike anything I've ever hiked. And right now, the three trails I'm really looking at are the two IAT trails. I think they're called like Air the Red, and then the other one I can't pronounce. But those are all on the western side. Those are all pretty accessible. But if my intent is to cross Greenland, and so that's like a completely different thing from like just through hiking. I mean, that's like you have to get like a guide. There's going to have to be like helicopter drops for food. Some of it might involve like some winter, and you probably know how much I like winter hiking, but like some pretty like shoulder season hiking. So that's different gear. And so if I'm able to pull everything together and actually cross Greenland, that's kind of the goal and intent. But again, a lot of it again depends on what kind of sources I'm able to put together. But for right now, if I'm unable to do that, I will just do those three trails, and they're less than 300 miles, and you don't need a guide or anything. They're all on the western side of Greenland. But like logistically, it's going to be completely it's going to be something that I've never done. A lot of it's going to be just creating my own routes, especially in Iceland. I plan to circumnavigate the entire island, but I'm going to be hiking in a place called Hordenstrat. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's pretty stunning. It's on the northwest side. I've only seen pictures. So it's really going to be a route that I create and make up my own. I have a general outline of what I want to do, and I also have mileage behind that. But again, that's just a guide for now. I mean, if I see something that looks cool that I want to go do, then I'm just obviously going to go do that. But
Yeah.
again, it will be like a continuous route though. So I'm going to connect everything as much as possible, as much as you can over water.
Man, connect all like I don't know, 20 million footsteps. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So I'm curious, are there any polar bears in Greenland?
There are polar bears. You know what? So I didn't even know this when I first hiked the ECT. There are actually polar bears in Newfoundland. And they
Yikes.
come down. Yeah, usually when through hikers are up in the northern part of Newfoundland, there aren't generally any polar bears because it's over the summer or early summer. They usually come over like in winter
Hmm.
and stay in early spring. They follow like the seals. And so the first time I was up there, I had no idea. And you know, there aren't really a lot of trees in Newfoundland, so you can't really bear hang. So, it's either a canister or you use your food as a pillow. And, I mean, I know some people don't like that, but, you got to do what you got to do. So, yes, there are bears. And that's, again, going back to kind of like how the logistics around this. If I cross Greenland, I'm absolutely going to have to hike with a guide, and I'm absolutely going to have to hike with a rifle. So those are two things that are going to be very interesting. And also, actually, up in Norway, they encourage you to hike with a rifle. So,
Well, thanks for jumping on. This was awesome.
is this a podcast or on YouTube, or is that what you're planning on doing?
Yeah, it'll be a podcast, and I'll probably put the videos up on YouTube or some clips of them or something. But yeah, just a fun way to talk to all these people with all these stories that never talk about themselves.
Okay.
And that's the episode. Thanks so much for listening. We always love those 5-star reviews, liking, sharing, however you do the things on social media. Thanks a bunch. That's it. And until next Monday, I guess, stay elite, my friends.